Alright, welcome back to another reaction. This is why Ralsei will be Deltarune's greatest villain, Deltarune Chapter 2 Theory. Now, I'm just gonna say it before you do. Ralsei is an anagram of Asriel. Asriel's going to return at Chapter 7, therefore he's the final boss. No, I'm kidding. Okay, I'm partially kidding, I don't know. I mean, this is... Also, I'm pretty sure that red flash behind him is just the Among Us kill or meeting background, but pixelized. And that aside, I also feel like Ralsei didn't get enough screen time in Chapter 2. Like, I feel sorry for him. Like, Birdley and Noelle, I don't think they even acknowledged him. I mean, other than Birdley referring to him as part of the C+ squad, and Noelle saying his tea tasted empty, and Queen hardly acknowledged him herself. Like, she even forgot he was there when she caged everyone. She didn't remember whether or not there was a third guy when fighting you in Giga Queen, and, I don't know, you did speak to her about twice, in two other occasions, being the Roaring and about the castle town in Snowgrave. Also, I'm doing this off of Wi-Fi for once because the signal's down, so... Also, I had this go through, so hopefully there's no ads. Like, I just had my video playing on the side without any volume, scrolling through the bar, so I don't think there should be any ads now.
Deltarune Chapter 2 goes deep. Not that Chapter 1 was any different, but the amount of information
I don't know, there was
now
quite a few
really make me start to
differences.
question what I thought I knew.
Especially
So much
considering
that I
this
think about
one
how the
actually
remaining chapters
had
will play out.
genocide.
And this is what ultimately led me to this video. Why Ralsei will be Deltarune's greatest villain. A claim that sounds, well, quite absurd. No,
Very.
Ralsei, the kindest heart to grace the dark world, may not be all that he seems. With the introduction of Chapter 2, things are becoming interesting to say the least. But would our lovable goat mage really betray us?
Goat mage.
Yes, I strongly think that could be a possibility. But it might
I
not
mean, yeah, it
fully
is
be in the
possible,
way
but
that
I
you
doubt
think.
it.
So buckle up, because I have a lot to share.
Buckle up, I'm sitting in a...
I've always
Okay.
loved digital landscapes and the worlds in video games. Longtime fans of the channel will definitely know that. Strong artwork has the power to take you somewhere else. And
Very.
that's why I love displays. Displays are slick metal posters.
Pre-advertisement.
So with Chapter 2's release, we found out that in total, Deltarune will have a whopping 7 whole chapters.
Yeah,
That's
it's gonna
quite the
be a
adventure.
long wait.
But with an adventure that long and the hype for each chapter increasing with each release going forward, Toby is going to have to really pull some twists to keep this train moving the way it is now.
Of course he is.
That's a ton of pressure. If you think about it, both the king and queen were memorable characters in their own ways. But I'd argue that difficult challenges tend to overshine character traits. Why do we all rally against the Sans fight in the Undertale genocide route?
Yes.
Because it was hard as heck. A comedic character absolutely thrashed us. In Deltarune, we have similar situations with the secret bosses. Jevil was a pretty brutal fight, and the goofy lad gave us a run for our money. You could say that Spamton one-upped Jevil. Maybe not in difficulty, depending on how you feel about the fight, but in emotional attachment. Spamton was a super memey character, and hearing his backstory...
Yeah, I understand
really broke our
Spamton
hearts.
now, and I do like his
Jevil
songs,
was the more
but
difficult of the two,
half the
still
things you
one-upped
say
the
still
Jevil
doesn't make
experience
sense
of
to me.
Chapter 1,
I'm mostly
and that's
talking about
hard
the
to keep doing.
censorship. I
I
get
can't help but
what
think
he's
of
about.
series like Dragon Ball Z, where the only way they could ever move forward and maintain hype in the show and manga was just by scaling the power creep through the roof. Now, the previous encounters is not 100% necessary.
I'm allergic to anime.
Now, I promise that I'm saying all
No,
this
not
for a
really.
reason, and it'll eventually come back to Ralsei. Chapter 3's villain, or secret boss, who is presumed to be Mike, already seems like they have power or influence over Spamton. I recommend
We
checking
had
my
King,
Spamton
then
deep dive
Queen,
video
now we
after
have
this
some
one
guy
if you
called
haven't seen it
Mike.
yet.
And yes,
So
I'm
the stakes are
repeating
already
what you
really
said,
high
plus
going
plus.
into Chapter 3, but this pattern can't be repeated forever.
Sure it
loses
can.
its
Watch
punch
it.
after a while. If every chapter had one main foe and one secret side fight, would the impact slowly diminish? Toby is already
tell
under a
me.
lot of pressure from Undertale. He's hinted at this over the years, and I imagine it made creating another game hard. What if it didn't meet the expectations of the first? Mentally, that has to be overbearing.
I mean, it's like Toby said, he won't be able to make us feel the same again. Undertale was definitely something. Deltarune, that's something else. Maybe similar, but it's still something else.
A lot of times overthinking things, but even with YouTube, the goal is always to do better than last time. And that's brutal.
Be better than you
what
were
is the one
yesterday,
way
as my
to
dad
truly
always
release
said.
the emotions of those playing your game? To throw a curveball and leave them flabbergasted? Well, betrayal. There's nothing more gut-wrenching than having characters that you love betray each other. I can't help but think back to the
Yeah.
game Bomberman 64 on Nintendo 64. Probably the one betrayal that still has me shook to this day. You can beat that entire game and not know you were helping the villain the entire time. It's insane.
Apparently.
Most players who didn't 100% the game had no idea that the person helping you from the start
I'm
was
getting
the bad guy.
nostalgia
The
just looking
person who
at that.
taught you things, gave you power-ups, and even aided you in fights. And the credits rolled, and they never went back to playing that game. Unknown to them, the true villain worked with them the entire game, and now they had one of the most powerful artifacts in the universe. In that
Yeah.
timeline, the player left the story in a really bad spot, but the player had no idea, and they celebrated their victory. But if you 100% the game, that same character reveals his true motives, annihilates the endgame boss who you thought was bad, and now the true fight begins. It's so screwed up, but an awesome
Yeah, it
twist
is.
reserved for
It really
completionists.
is.
All this to say, I think Ralsei will betray us. But what does betrayal in this sense actually mean? Well, let's talk about Ralsei's
This
weird
is the
behavior,
part where I
because it
double
starts early
cross
on,
you.
and it grows more and more strange as time goes on. Starting off, Ralsei already knows about souls. He brings it up during your first
Yeah.
fight. Ralsei also knows about button inputs, since he tells Chris to move boxes near the start of Chapter 1 with a Z command, despite Susie having no idea what he's talking about. Obviously, in the tutorial battle, he brought these up too. But having another character react to it definitely gives some more merit to the idea that he knows things that he shouldn't. So, let's talk about that legend. The legend that only Ralsei seems to know about. I think the biggest red flag with this legend is that only Ralsei can explain it to you, and that he purposely withheld further information regarding the legend until the final confrontation from Queen.
That's
Not even Queen
true.
knew about the roaring, which sounds like the strange cousin to Attack on Titan's The Rumbling. Ralsei withheld this information from us until the final moment before something seemingly bad happened, and we don't even know what else he's hiding. Something else that is pretty
I was a
suspicious is that
double
Ralsei knows
agent.
about the school
Everything
and
you
where the
just
pieces
said
and
was
parts of Chapter
insane.
1's area are at. His directions are really specific at the start of Chapter 2. Quote, Chris, I have something to ask you. I need you to return to the light world and go to the old classroom, to the east of the closet doors. Inside, gather everything on the ground and bring it back here. Could you? End quote. For someone who spent all their time in the dark world, how does he know exactly where everything is at? More so,
I
he's
just
telling
assumed he was
Chris
like the
as if
tutorial
Chris needs
guy
these
or
directions to find the room again. It's pretty suspicious.
something to
But
that
it only
effect.
gets worse. We enter the dark fountain and the library and come face to face with Queen. Despite
Where
landing
rules
in an
card
area,
exits
floating in the
your
void, and
inventory for
surrounded with
whatever
cliffs
reason.
on all sides, Ralsei meets up with us from the way we came. There's only one way to get to the area. It dead ends, and there are no paths leading to it, except from the light world. So somehow, in theory, Ralsei entered the light world, went to the library, and came into the new dark fountain.
Yeah, I was
Again,
wondering
how
that.
he knew where to go in the town is questionable, as is his ability to leave. Other Darkners turn to stone if they spend too much time in the wrong dark world, like, for example, Lancer. But Ralsei seems immune. Why is that, by chance? Just who
Whoa.
exactly is Ralsei? Or what? Given that he just sort of wanders over and plays it off cool, what exactly is the deal with him waiting for Lightners at the start
That's
of the game?
it. Okay.
If Ralsei was just waiting...
That is interesting to think about. The fact that, okay, Rules and Lancer both got turned into stone. Ralsei is also a Darkner who's helping the Lightners. He wasn't turned into stone. That's definitely something to think about.
for Lightners to show up in Chapter 1. Did he have memories
I did not
before that?
notice
or is it
that at
similar
all.
to Chapter 2, where once
River
another dark
person,
fountain
river
was
person,
opened, it
river
seemed like
person,
that place had
river
always
person,
existed,
river
and it was
person,
added back to
river
the timeline,
person,
despite it seemingly not existing before.
possibly
It's
a
hard
river
to tell if
person.
Ralsei's memory is immediately updated, as reality instantaneously snaps into place. Near the end of Chapter 2, in the secret encounter with Spamton Neo, there's a cutscene in the hallway that happens right after the fight. Chris is overwhelmed and shouting in the basement. Susie is freaked out herself, but Ralsei assures them that everything is fine.
Susie was like me when I first met
saying
Spamton. Like, that was so
didn't mean
weird.
anything, and that it was just a corrupted program. Mind you, he's doing this while glancing to the side in this photo. This is weird. So weird. It's not fine. Your two partners are freaking out for good reason. Ralsei then tells Chris not to think about what happened too hard, and to just think of something else. After Susie leaves, he tells us everything will be okay, and then just sort of walks through the wall behind us. Like, what? All this happens if you choose that you're not okay. But if you choose yes, that you're okay, your character strains to say they are fine. This freaks Susie out because she knows it isn't true. But Ralsei is all, well, they said they're okay, so let's roll out. He always is radiating kindness, but it feels like the anime character smiles all the time with questionable intent. The character who is two
Sometimes,
steps ahead
yes.
always. I mean, Ralsei knew everything about our characters the moment we stepped in the Dark World. How did he know our
True.
names before telling him? It's odd. And all this leaves me with a sense that Ralsei knows
Did say he was
everything about
waiting.
Deltarune. He knows who you are, what you must do, and how all of it fits together. And he plays the
Hmm.
role of a kind mediator who cheers you up when you're down and fills you in when you need help. But all of it is according to his plan. And sure, Ralsei could be the light to Chris's darkness. Chris is
Hmm.
out here popping fountains while Ralsei is trying to plug them up. The prophecy at the beginning of the game is all about the two sides of the universe, but for some reason, only the Prince of the Dark knows everything about it. He
Yeah.
drops that blasted phrase, space and time, something we've heard often. But what is Ralsei's goal really? These dark worlds opening up don't
I
necessarily
honestly
seem
forgot
like a bad
Ralsei
thing,
was the Dark
since they
Prince.
breathe life into an area. We don't
I
know if the
mean,
prophecy is
Azrael's
even
a
true,
prince.
especially with how weird Ralsei has been lately. The king is a murderous jerk and a horrible father, but his dialogue in his fight might very well be true.
He
The
did
knight
also
is
say that
creating
even
new
if he
worlds
threw him,
for
he would just
darkness,
bounce.
and is that truly a bad thing? Ralsei seems to think so, but in the end, it seems more like worlds are being opened, conquered, and then the residents have a choice to either come back to Ralsei's town or perish as their world closes off. Doesn't sound like much of a choice to me. Of course, there's a chance that Ralsei is truly doing this for the greater good, and maybe they
Whoa.
are. Maybe everything I brought
Hey.
up is only what we assume based off his actions. But even with all that said, and even if Ralsei is good, I still think he'll betray us. Here's why.
Hmm.
In Deltarune, it's really important to understand the dynamic of what isn't said. Subtle things seem to go a mile, and the story we've experienced so far has been with a team of 5 people, not 4.
Yeah.
Chris, Susie, Ralsei, Noelle, and the player. The player being this unseen
Oh.
force that is literally us. But in the game world, it is a force that can make anyone do anything. In the Snowgrave route, it's the player, not Chris, who makes Noelle do terrible things. A voice she hears in her head, even when Chris is eliminated. And when we're pushed to our final moment with Spamton Neo and Chris begs for their friends to come, no one shows up. And it says Chris is making these asks.
Yeah,
until
but then when
we
you call
ask
for Noelle,
and
you
then it's
whispered
us.
Noelle's name.
You. And Noelle cannot resist the command, the overarching power
You
of the
lit
player's
the
authority.
lantern,
And so,
we
she
heed the
kills
call.
Spamton in cold blood. Literally. So why do I bring this up? Well, it's because Ralsei knows.
Cold.
He's aware of this entity that's controlling Chris. And perhaps that explains his weird actions. He does not ever dare tell the player things that they shouldn't know. And he thinks he sometimes is avoiding the player when having private conversations. Much
Yeah?
like Noelle does after the hospital, when she starts talking about the voice that has been commanding her. And then Chris shows up out of the dark to answer. If Chris equipped her watch in the dark world, she then freaks out because she realizes what happened wasn't a dream. And I don't
Is
blame
her
her,
watch
because
just
the
the
realization
ring?
would be
Or
quite
how do you
terrifying.
trigger that
So even
dialogue?
if Ralsei's intentions with Castletown are pure and not selfish or malevolent, at some point he will have to cross us. Mind you, I'm referring to the player, who uses Chris like a puppet. Ralsei has been extremely helpful during our entire journey so far, but a betrayal is coming, and it's going to have an impact greater than any secret boss would. Whether it be withholding the truth to something extremely serious until it's too late to make a difference, or to confront the player to stop them from manipulating Chris into altering the timeline.
Yeah,
when
that's
it's
what I'm
supposed to
thinking.
happen. And by our choices, perhaps the dark path we took, that then makes Ralsei the enemy, as the king puts it,
Yeah?
the bad guy. Much like how the king was fighting for their own justice and sense of righteousness. Either
Yeah?
Ralsei is going down, or the player is. It's all about perspective of who the perceived villain is. And
Yeah,
the battle
good
of
and
light
evil
versus
are
dark
often
is
based
going
on
to be
points
one of
of
the most
view.
powerful encounters in
Many
Deltarune.
that live
But then
deserve
again,
death.
maybe Ralsei
Some that
is
die
the true
deserve
enemy.
life.
They claim they are the Prince of Darkness, but they have no subjects, other than the ones they manipulate into coming to their town through kindness.
Manipulate.
What if there's an unknown bad reason Ralsei is gathering them all there? Ralsei also gave themselves the title Prince of Darkness, whereas Lancer is truly a Prince of the Dark. Is Ralsei just
Right.
the Dark World rendition
Just
of the
like how
headband
Kara
and red
calls
horns that
themselves
Chris
the
used to wear
demon
as a
that
kid?
comes when
Or is
people
it
call its
something way more
name,
powerful
and
than it lets
Azrael
on?
calls
How
himself the
about
god of
Azrael's
hyperdeath.
tie-in?
Well,
Well,
technically,
that's for us
Kara
to
calls
find
him
out.
that too, but still.
Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks
Wait,
for
what
watching,
pronoun
and
did I
cheers.
just say for Kara? Yeah! Thankfully, the ad did not load in time. I don't like ads. Okay, so that was interesting, and a lot of it's based off of just how knowledgeable Ralsei is, especially the fact that he might know about the player and he might want to stop the player, especially after maybe multiple genocide-ish actions. So if chapters 3 and above are going to have like genocidal routes like chapter 2 did, well, I can definitely see that leading to Ralsei wanting to take you down. I mean, in game, I don't know. In game, he usually dies the easiest out of everyone, but I don't know, maybe he does have secret powers he's holding back on. I have no idea. That was definitely an interesting theory, though. Do I support it? I don't know. I'm just gonna wait. Like, I'll keep these things in mind for when the following chapters appear, but, uh, I really don't know. Yeah, that was very interesting. Very interesting. So, thanks for watching. See you in the next video.